What's up, you guys? It's the Wrestling Old Head. You have entered the portal of pro wrestling. Today, we're talking about AEW Forbidden Door. I'm about to break down this card like a shotgun here in the portal. But before I get into that, I know it's been a while. One of the reasons why I've been absent for so long is I've actually got hit with a real bad bug, and I was sick for a few days. It floored me. My voice sounded like crap. My voice is probably still like crap to this day. Or, hey, maybe you're one of those guys that always thought my voice sounded like crap. Regardless, I'm still recovering, but we're going to get through to this AEW Forbidden Door review. And hey, just something I wanted to drop on you. I was a guest on ALTJAKE Takes On. That's right. I had my first podcast interview where I was the interviewee. The interviewers, ALTJAKE and George, were a wonderful duo that do podcasts, and they do lives on X on Sundays at 8:05 Eastern. You've got to check them out. I got a link to the podcast down below. We talk about all kinds of things, and when you're over there, make sure you drop a subscribe and hit the like button. It'll be hugely appreciated on my part and on their part. Those guys were wonderful. And as I said, we talked about a range of different topics. I mean, we went to the past and started talking about pro wrestling from the 90s, the way that we viewed professional wrestling as young kids growing up in that era, all the way to the current product. We left no stone unturned. It is a must listen. Go ahead and check that out. And now let's get to AEW Forbidden Door. This is the 4th annual AEW Forbidden Door. They are going to be live from London, England at the infamous O2 Arena. This is going to be a jam-packed venue, and they've got 9 matches thus far. Now, as of this recording, which is on a Thursday night, we only got 9 matches. I suspect, sneaking suspicion, we're at least going to get 12. Now, I know they've got the 0 hour or 0 hours because it's probably going to be 2 hours. So we're going to expect some matches there. But I'm just going to break down the top matches that are listed for this event as of today. All right, so we're going to break it down. Let's get right into it. In a lights out steel cage match, 5-on-5, it's going to be the Golden Lovers, Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi, Darby Allin, Hiroshi Tanahashi, which is being billed as his last time wrestling in London, England, and Will Ospreay against the Death Riders, Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, the Young Bucks, and Gabe Kidd. Very interesting story that's playing out. Obviously, if you know, the Death Riders have been running roughshod over the AEW since about middle 2024 until current day, which is, for the better part of a year. Now, the thing with this is there are a lot of intertwining stories here. Now, Gabe Kidd has been kind of like a mercenary assassin type for the Death Riders. Not exactly an official member, but they call on him when they need a sniper, right? And it's an interesting story. It hasn't been thrown in front of us or presented in a way to where casual viewers, people that don't watch all the time, even some that do, fully understand his role with the Death Riders. But the only reason that I bring that up is because that's just my own way of, I pulled that out of the ether, man. That's the only way I can figure it out. I'm losing my mind over here about Gabe Kidd and the Death Riders. Is he AEW or is he just a mercenary that comes along when NJPW loans him out? I don't know, to quote Lex Luger. However, Gabe Kidd, one of the last times we saw Gabe Kidd in AEW before getting entangled with this group, the Death Riders, and the Young Bucks for better, was a match he had with Eddie Kingston. The last time we saw Eddie Kingston, he was injured in a match with Gabe Kidd. Now, the last time Gabe Kidd wrestled with the Death Riders, I infamously predicted, I guess it's not infamously because not a lot of people watched it, delving forward, I predicted that Eddie Kingston would play a role in that match. Never happened. And then there were some reports that came out not soon after that stated that Eddie Kingston was still in rehab, recovering from his injury. I think it was the quad or the knee. I'm actually not quite sure off the top of my head, but he's still rehabbing that injury. So that was about 4 or 5 months ago, off the top of my head as well. I am actually predicting that Eddie Kingston could get involved in this at some point. Now, I don't know if he's going to play a role in the finish. Maybe he comes out towards the end. I think that would be a huge pop. The O2 Arena would go crazy. He's got to come back at some point. So I'm just going to keep rolling the dice, and every time Gabe Kidd isn't part of AEW, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to predict that Eddie Kingston has a role in it. Now, looking at this team, at both teams, from a glance here, 95% of the face side of things, Team Darby Allin or Team Will Ospreay, because they're at the O2 Arena, are dealing with injuries. Kota Ibushi just came back from an injury not too long ago. Kenny Omega, the last time we saw him, he got beat by Okada, and he went out holding his intestinal area. Hiroshi Tanahashi is on his last legs, and I am not kidding. Darby Allin just came back from climbing Mount Everest, but he hasn't come back into full swing of things with a full-time schedule. And Will Ospreay openly admitted on Dynamite that he may have to have surgery to repair discs in his spine. So they're definitely not healthy. I don't know why Will Ospreay would put himself in a situation where it was lights out steel cage, where something bad could happen against a dangerous team like the Death Riders and Gabe Kidd, and of course the Young Bucks as well. But he did. So there is a lot of tension going into this match. Is somebody going to get hurt? Is Hiroshi Tanahashi going to do the high fly flow off the top of the cage? Is Will Ospreay going to try to do something crazy like, I don't know, another Spanish fly off the top of the cage? These are all questions, and it builds to the anticipation, for better or worse. You know, it's like watching a car wreck. You know, you just can't turn away. But hopefully everybody gets out without getting injury. I am not the type of guy that is a fan of people risking their body, for better or worse, for the thrill of the audience. You know, I mean, there are definitely special times for that. I grew up in an era where, you know, FMW, IWA Japan, ECW, they did a lot of things to risk themselves for the pleasing of the audience and tape traders alike. But in this instance, Will Ospreay is among one of the top guys in AEW. He is one of the most over faces in AEW, and you want to preserve him at his height so that he can take AEW to the next level. And I think if anybody could, it would be Will Ospreay. So, and of course, Kenny Omega probably doesn't have a whole lot left in him as well. He put his body on the line for over 15 years for the people. You gotta give it, it's like 17 years or something like that, legitimately. So you gotta make sure that you preserve Kenny Omega too, because he might not have too many more matches left in him, and there's a few dream matches that are left on the table for Kenny Omega. So because of that, because of the injuries of these, or potential, reoccurring injuries of these guys, I'm going to go with the Death Riders, the Bucks, and Gabe Kidd here. I think what they're setting up is obviously Darby Allin and Jon Moxley going into All Out. I think that's the match that they really want to have. There's no title on the line, but obviously you want Darby Allin to get his revenge, to Jon Moxley to have his comeuppance. So you want Darby Allin to win that. I don't think it does any favors to have Jon Moxley and his crew lose here. It just kills the momentum. It kills all the suspense for All Out. And Jon Moxley lost at the last big event to Hangman Adam Page. So you want to get his momentum back. I mean, AEW, at the truth of it all, they don't really have a lot of top heels at the top of the card, the main event card, there to work with. So you want to keep him strong going into All Out and give him a little bit of that momentum. So I feel like the Bucks and the Death Riders and Gabe Kidd find a way to eke out a victory here. I also would say keep your eyes on Jack Perry. We haven't seen him in about a year, so him coming back would be something that's, it's right on time here. We've seen a lot of returns lately in AEW, so I wouldn't put that behind them to have Jack Perry show up, and then that's when you bring Eddie Kingston out. Okay, I'm beating a dead horse. So my prediction for that is the Death Riders. Hurt Syndicate defend their AEW World Tag Team Championships against Brodito. It sounds like a burrito. And FTR. This match was made official on Dynamite when FTR and Brodito went the marathon. They did I guess it's not a Broadway because it wasn't an hour, but they definitely went the whole 30-minute time limit, television time limit. And they ended up getting Tony Khan to make it official to add them both to the tag team title match at Forbidden Door. Here's how I see this playing out. Cage and Cope, they are back together. Are they a complete unit yet? No, they're building that up. And I like that. It's a simple, effective story. Cage is still an asshole. Cope embraces him being an asshole, and I think slowly embracing him being an asshole, he's going to get Cage to crack a little bit, and that old Cage is going to come back with just the slight hint of attitude, and I think that's what we're building towards, which I like because they're telling the audience that. They're not playing hide the ball here. They're letting you know exactly how this story is going to play out, and they're letting you know who they're going after. They're checking the enemies off their checklist. Nick Wayne was one of them. They ended up injuring him. Luchasaurus comes out to replace him. We'll get to that later. Kip Sabian is still following around. And then you have FTR. Aha! So FTR is going to be a part of this three-way dance. You've got Brodito available as well. Some people say that they're there to take the pin. I'll get to that later. Hurt Syndicate as the tag team champions. I don't know if you want to have them lose the tag team titles here, and I'm going to explain to you why. Because if they lose, you have nothing for them signed up at All Out. The AEW tag team division is admittedly on a rebuild period, so they're trying to rebuild their tag division. So what you do is, or what I would like for them to do, is have Cage and Cope get involved, cost FTR this match, give Hurt Syndicate the win over Brodito, and then you have an in for FTR to insert themselves into the next tag team match at All Out. Now you're saying, old head, you dumb idiot. Why would they do another three-way tag team match at All Out? I don't know, to quote Lex Luger again. But it makes sense as far as the story. You've got FTR, Cope, Christian, and Hurt Syndicate involved in All Out. I think that's a big time money match, and you can have there must be a winner stipulation. So then if Cope and Cage win, you've still got a tag team match ahead with FTR that they can also utilize. You've got a lot of big time names involved in this match. I don't think Hurt Syndicate would mind at all if they took a loss to Cope and Christian. And the most important point of this idea that I have is that FTR does not have to be transitional champions. I think it's a valid point, because if FTR beats the Hurt Syndicate and Brodito at Forbidden Door, they are by all accounts going to All Out in Canada and dropping the titles to the CNC Music Factory. I'm just kidding. Cope and Christian. So you push the goalpost, you move the goalpost a little bit, you keep Hurt Syndicate in line as the tag team champions, and then you get one of those two top teams, be it FTR or Christian and Cope, to beat them, and I think all is right in the world. You got these intertwining stories, you got two heel tag teams in Hurt Syndicate who actually like tweeners, and FTR going against Cope and Christian. Cope and Christian are actually going to be on better footing after this match, but I'll get into that later. That is why I have Hurt Syndicate coming out on top in this. Kazuchika Okada defends his AEW Unified Championship against Swerve Strickland, another superstar that is at the top of the card, a top face dealing with an injury. There have been reports that have come out that Swerve is dealing with a meniscus tear and it may require surgery. And I think he's got the Jacksonville Jaguars team working on that knee to get him into top shape to go through this next match. For that reason, I've got Okada coming out on top here, and I hope and I pray that Swerve isn't out too long. You have a situation where Swerve, Ospreay, and Kenny Omega could be out for an extended period of time. So hopefully, after this whole cage match, if everybody comes out unscathed, and I hope that that's the truth, and you have Swerve that doesn't require surgery, or even if he has to have surgery, is not out too long, you can get these guys back into the swing of things to keep the momentum going at the top of the card for the faces. And not having heels is another story, but I think that's when Okada comes into play, because he still is a heel, and he needs to be utilized at the top of the card in the absence of a Jon Moxley, who's not going to be in the main event scene very much longer after he loses to Darby Allin. So, for that reason, I've got Okada. Now, for the AEW Women's Championship, this is Athena's Casino Gauntlet Championship contract match. Athena challenges Timeless Toni Storm. Athena's been the Ring of Honor Women's Champion for probably about 4 or 5 years now. She is essentially the forever champion. I love Athena. I think Athena is super entertaining. I'm so happy to see her on primetime television, and I hope that continues. And because of that, I would really, really hope that she was able to eke out a win. But my gut feeling tells me, because they are in London, England, in the home of the Timeless One, that Toni Storm is coming out victorious in this. Sad to say it, but I just see it and I know it to be true. But I hope they keep Athena around, keep her momentum going, maybe possibly get a rematch down the line. But please, for the love of God, keep Athena on television. She's super entertaining, and they need a woman like her in the top of the card for AEW's women's division. But I got Toni Storm winning. Mercedes Moné defends her AEW TBS Championship against Persephone, Alex Winza, and Bozilla. If you know, you know. Bozilla is a beast. I hope that she's able to really showcase herself well, because there's a money match there between Megan Bayne and Bozilla. If you know, you know. Do your Googles and find out about Bozilla. She is awesome. I really wish AEW would have done a better job of giving her a video package and having her come out and just stand on the stage and show the world her stature. She is a beast, and I can't wait for the AEW audience and the wrestling world to get a hold of her on a big stage and just see how massive she is. She's a star in the making. Tony Khan's got a good eye. You just got to know what to do with him. I mean, he's not really good as far as a track record. I'm just keeping it 1,000 here. He doesn't have a good track record with big men. So I hope he knows what to do with big women, figuratively and literally. I'm just being honest here. Bozilla is a beast. If you know what to do with her, she can be a top star in AEW, just the same as Megan Bayne, who is seemingly falling off of a cliff lately. You got to keep the momentum for these women, because this is the future here if they know how to utilize them. Same with Tekla. Where's she been at? You know, keep these people on TV so they're fresh in the audience's minds. With that being said, Mercedes Moné will undoubtedly break Jade Cargill's TBS Championship record, and if I'm correct, she's got about a month or 2 left before she does just that, and you bet your bottom dollar she'll do it. So I got Mercedes Moné coming out on top in that one. For the TNT Championship, Hiromu Takahashi challenges Kyle Fletcher for the championship. Pretty much an NJPW showcase here. I mean, Kyle Fletcher coming from NJPW, Hiromu Takahashi at the top of the card in NJPW for a while now. I think these two are going to clash. I think they'll have a fine match, but I've got Kyle Fletcher winning. It's a no friggin' brainer. Zack Sabre Jr. defends his IWGP World Heavyweight Championship at Forbidden Door. That's a huge, huge deal that they should have done more job of promoting. This is an IWGP World Heavyweight Championship match against Nigel McGuinness. I love Nigel McGuinness, and I love the run that he's going on thus far. He's really taking advantage of this second run, essentially. I mean, before he had this run in AEW, the last we saw of him was as Desmond Wolfe in TNA. I love the fact that he's having this resurgence. Do I expect him to win? No, and he's going to have Daniel Garcia in his corner, who looked very upset that he did not move along to be the number 1 contender for that championship. So I would keep your eyes on Daniel Garcia, because I think he's going to play a part in this match. Maybe another heel turn. They got to do something to keep his momentum up because Daniel Garcia hasn't been showcased on Dynamite in a very, very long time. He's pretty much been a collision cowboy, and they need to get him on the screen more, and they need to have a little resurgence for him. So maybe he snaps. And a Nigel McGuinness-Daniel Garcia match, not the worst thing you can think of. I think Nigel will make him look like a star, and that's kind of what you need. You need some of these legacy acts before they say goodbye in AEW to put over some of the younger talent. It's one of the most essential things. You hear rumors of Chris Jericho leaving and going to the WWE at the end of the year. Bring Chris Jericho back and have him do business and put over some young talent. Have we seen Chris Jericho against Will Ospreay yet? Well, do it. Put it on television, even if it's on Dynamite, and have Will Ospreay beat Chris Jericho. Do something like that. Make these top guys look even more important by beating the legacy acts. That is my pledge to AEW. And then focus on these younger guys. I think it's time, after 6-7 years now, almost 7 years, it is time for AEW to focus on their new generation. So I've got Zack Sabre Jr. coming out on top in that one. In a tag team match, Kip Sabian and Killswitch Luchasaurus go against Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. Now, I've already talked about this a little bit because I was mentioning Cope and Christian in the triple threat tag team match here. I've got Cope and Christian coming out on top. Obviously, Luchasaurus coming back. I thought that was a wonderful video package that they did for him, and they brought him out. They made him look like a superstar. I don't expect him to take a pin here. I think Kip Sabian takes the pin, and I think this is the moment that we get Christian smiling a little bit after that victory, but he still walks off. I think they can stretch that out a little bit more before they put Cope and Christian in a situation where they're challenging for the tag team championships or they're going against FTR. Please don't do Cope Christian against FTR on Dynamite and then have them go 30 minutes in a time limit draw. Please don't do that. But at some point, I think they need to figure out a way to get all three teams involved. And I'm talking about the Hurts, I'm talking about Christian and Cope, and I'm talking about FTR so that they can have their three-way at All Out. That's my thoughts. But I've got Christian and Cope getting the win. And finally, Hangman Adam Page against Maxwell Jacob Friedman for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. If Hangman is counted out or disqualified, he will lose the title, and Maxwell Jacob Friedman is not cashing in his Casino Gauntlet contract. He is able to keep it. So they have done some switcheroos, right? So they did the Kansas City Shuffle like 3 times for this thing. They made you think he was going one way, then they went the other way, and then they went that way, and then they went back the other way. This has been a pendulum swing if I've ever seen one. I've got Hangman Adam Page winning. I don't think he drops the championship this soon, and I think they had their out now by saying that MJF doesn't need to cash in his Casino Gauntlet contract, so he gets to keep it. Is he going to cash in after he loses? That is the question. Or if he's going to hang on and wait until All Out or for another time, that is the question. But I've got Hangman Adam Page coming out on top here. I think this is going to be a phenomenal matchup. MJF can work a great match in his sleep, and I think he's got a great dance partner with Hangman Adam Page. Those two do some great things together, and I'd like to see them expound on that. But I'd also like to see the MJF that cut that shoot promo on Tony Khan when he came back and called him an effing mark. I'd really like to see that MJF come back, and maybe we get that once he loses and he becomes a little bit more cerebral. And I'm still advocating for them to bring Hammerstone and the triumphant return of Wardlow to side with MJF so that he can go after the Hurts and he has a little bit of a muscle behind him, because I don't think Ricochet and the Gates of Agony, I don't know if that's going to work out, because Ricochet and the Gates of Agony, they're great, don't get me wrong, but they're more of a comedy team, trio, triad, whatever. And I think with MJF, what he needs is he needs some muscle behind him so he can talk a bunch of shit, and then those two big behemoths can get in front of him, and there's not a whole lot anybody can do aside from Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. So even if they put in a situation where the Hurts lose their tag team championships, now you've got a tag team that is ready, made, and built to put on banger after banger after banger. If you know, you know. So that's what I think of Forbidden Door. I'm really excited about checking this event out. Remember, it's coming out earlier. It's going to be about noon Eastern time or something like that, because they're going to be in London, England at the O2 Arena. So even if it does go 6.5 hours, and you can bet your bottom dollar, because it's an AEW pay-per-view, that it's going to go 6.5 hours, you're going to get it in and out before you know it. stay tuned and keep posted, because I am going to have thoughts on this event, a complete rundown where I break the whole show down like a shotgun, my thoughts, where I feel things should go from there. Guys, stick around for that. I got to get going before I lose my voice, but thank you guys so much for listening, checking this out. Thumbs up on the way out, you guys. And remember, don't forget to check out my interview where I was actually interviewed on a podcast on ALTJAKE Takes On with ALTJAKE and George. It is down in the description box below, so make sure you go check that out and give those guys a follow. They do phenomenal stuff. It was a great time, and I look forward to having them on the Portal of Pro Wrestling pretty soon, so also stick around for that. Guys, thank you so much for checking this video out. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming out to the Portal of Pro Wrestling. I am the Wrestling Old Head. Stay tuned for more.